Good morning, afternoon, or evening to all my fellow pet care enthusiasts and veterinary professionals. I'm Harrison King, and this is the Creative Leash, the podcast designed to help you master social media marketing and advertising in the animal care space. Whether you're looking to grow your clinic's online presence, attract more dog training clients, stay ahead of the ever-changing digital landscape, or just need help finding a trending sound, you're in the right place. Today's a good day to have a good day, so let's jump right in. Ladies and gents, hope you guys are having a good day today. It has been quite a week. It's been very busy. Recently, I've been traveling almost, it feels like every weekend, which makes just the weeks feel busier for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. Thankfully, in November, I am getting a little bit of a break and we're not really going anywhere, thank goodness. But I'm so excited to be here today. Today is going to be a much shorter episode because, to be quite honest, there's not really a whole lot going on in the social media landscape right now. We're actually going to skip over housekeeping because, like I said, there's not really a whole lot to talk about. I want to dive into hot off the collar just real quick. This segment is where I break down the latest updates from the major social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok, and explain what they mean for you in your marketing strategy. Again, not a whole lot going on this week, but I did want to touch on this one thing that I did mention last week in Hot Off the Collar, which was the new Instagram UI user interface update. For those who did not listen to last week's episode, Instagram is rolling out a new UI for the platform itself, where it is changing where the post button goes and replacing that with the DMs tab, I suppose. And so at the bottom, you will have your home tab, your reels tab, your DM tab, your profile tab, and then the search tab, I think, maybe. There's one slight issue with this, and I actually don't mind the user interface update. I think that it's smart to have all of these things at the bottom. However, they have made a crucial mistake. The posting button is now at the top left, completely out of sight, completely out of mind. It's nowhere near where you think it would be the first place to go to make a post. When you're looking at the bottom of the screen, you're thinking to yourself, okay, let's make a post. Boom, bottom of the screen. That's where you inherently look, right? Unfortunately, now it's at the top left of the screen, which just makes it a bit more inconvenient. It's a first world problem, but I wanted to mention it anyway. There is that new UI update that is slowly rolling out to everyone on the platform. Last week, only a handful of my clients had the option to do it. Now, almost all of them have the option to do it. So it is slowly rolling out. I'd be curious to hear if your guys' thoughts on the platform updates or the user interface update. I'd be curious. Let's dive into the focus topic. Like I said, very short episode today. Let's dive into the focus topic, but packed with tons of value. Don't want to get that mixed up. Let's dive into the focus topic here. And I actually got this question recently at a presentation, which is why I wanted to talk about it. And it was the person that asked me this question asked me, how do you get the people within the clinic, the employees, your coworkers, to feel more comfortable being on camera? And when they asked me this, it hit home, right? Because when I started at All Star Veterinary Clinic in 2019, I was really one of the only ones doing what I was doing in the veterinary industry. People were looking at me like I was crazy when I entered into the clinic to do my job because nobody was really doing it. And so this question really, really hit home with me because I think there is a lot of things that an employee can do, a social media manager can do to really make it easier for not only themselves, but also just the clinic as a whole when it comes to filming content for social media. And so I want to start off with number one here. And all of these are probably going to sound easier said than done, but let's dive into number one. Do it often and consistently. Film often and consistently. I would highly recommend you keep yourself and your coworkers to a schedule. Guys, we're going to film 2 times this week. We're going to release 2 to 3 videos this week. And that's what we're going to do for the next many months. And then maybe for the next 30 days. And then we'll reevaluate kind of what we're thinking. Now, I understand that the vet industry is kind of ever changing with your guys' schedules and stuff like that. So it can be a little difficult to allot time and kind of keep up with that consistency. But I think that's what you guys should always strive for, is to be consistent and be filming often. Because when you are filming often, when you set that precedent and you set that consistency, it makes people more comfortable with filming. They don't really care that a camera is in their face. They don't really care that they see people filming across the clinic. It just becomes so inherent to the clinic's culture that it doesn't really matter. And that's kind of what happened at All Star, where I was around filming all the time, getting content all the time with a ton of different employees. And eventually it just became a thing to where nobody would even bat an eye that I was walking around with a camera. And so number one is I would do it often and consistently, film often and consistently. Number two kind of ties into number one a little bit, but if you guys can, I would highly recommend scheduling time. This is so important. And I do this to this day, and it took me forever to figure out because I wasn't quite sure coming into the veterinary industry what worked, what didn't, what people felt comfortable with, what people didn't feel comfortable with. And it pretty much just turned out that we had the option to schedule, say, 30 minutes to just film videos back to back to back to back to back. And so if your clinic allows that, I would block 30 minutes. Gather a group of people, say, hey guys, listen, we're going to do these videos. This is going to be great. These are going to come out over the next few weeks. Bing, bang, boom. Right. And I think that scheduling times is probably going to be a little bit easier depending on if you have a smaller clinic versus a larger clinic. So just keep that in mind. But I would highly recommend scheduling times. I think that's so important. It takes people's minds off of work. They're not focusing on the client that they just met with in the background. That was kind of difficult. This 30 minutes is specifically for content. So schedule times. My third point here is to find a group of employees that you can deem the content team, right? I think in any world, we would love to be able to showcase all of the employees in any given clinic and really make them shine. But sometimes, and I totally respect this, people just don't want to be involved. Like I said, I totally get it, which is why I think it can be important to find just a content team, regardless of the size of that content team. For example, at All Star now, we have a content team of about 10 people. 10, 12 people, and they always want to be in videos. They're always at the ready to do anything. So find that content team, and it'll make it so much easier to film content, plan content, rely on those people for content. And having that group is just so, so nice. Let me tell you, it is just so nice. My fourth and final point here is to plan the content if necessary. Now, I'm not saying you should be doing a social media manager's job where you are planning out weeks of content where you have all of these trending sounds picked out and blah, blah, blah. I do firmly believe that some of the best ideas come from just off the top in a random moment where you find a trending sound or come up with an idea and you want to film it right there and then. I firmly believe that. But sometimes some clinics, some individuals really like a schedule. They really like planning. And so I would highly recommend you plan content. And I don't really care how it's planned. You can plan it for the next few weeks. You can plan it for the next month or two. Doesn't matter. But I do think that if it's applicable, planning content for not only the person filming, but also for the people involved can be super helpful. Another thing that I'll put in here that with planning content that I think is super helpful is sharing those plans with the content team, for example, beforehand. It gives them a better idea of what they're going to be filming. Maybe they have ideas of their own that could be a little different than yours and make the idea as a whole better. So just keep that in mind. Plan the content if it's necessary. So I want to dive right into the next segment, which is Soundbite. And in this segment, I'm going to spotlight a trending sound that is taking over social media. And I want to tell you guys specifically what's hot, what's not. And so right now I have one trending sound, and over the past few weeks, I've actually come up with multiple, but I have one. And actually, now that I think about it, I may have a bonus one, now that I think about it. But this one I've been seeing going around on TikTok a little bit. I think it's going to make its way to Instagram. I also just think it's a general good trending sound to use as a whole, right? It couldn't even be trending, and this would still be good and apply to so many situations. But the way this works is that it's one person speaking, and the guy says, cool, can you give me a sec? And then turns and then does this really gravelly voice like, dude, and I'm going to have my editor bleep this out, but dude, we're f***ed. like I said, it could apply to so many situations. I'm going to have my editor actually play it here.
Cool. Can you give me a sec?
Alan, we are so...
One of the examples that I first thought of was maybe a vet tech is in a room and they're talking to a client and they say, cool, can you give me a second? And they turn and then they say that. And then the context is maybe a cat hasn't peed in 3 days or something, or 4 days or something like that. And that warrants that kind of reaction. So let me know if you try out that trending sound. Like I said, I think it's a really, really good one, and I'm excited to see it in more content moving forward. Another thing that I wanted to mention, my bonus one, and this isn't really one inherent trending sound, but there are a lot of songs from Taylor Swift's new album that are just trending as a whole. No surprise, it's Taylor Swift. But take a look at those, see if they apply to any of your content. I think that they very well could, but just take a look at those. So that's all I have for today's episode. Like I said, a very short one, but hopefully just as valuable as the others. And let's dive into the outro here. Thanks for tuning into another episode of The Creative Leash. If you enjoyed today's conversation or any of my previous episodes, it would mean the world to me if you left a review on your podcast provider of choice. Your feedback helps other pet care pros discover the show and keeps us growing. Wishing you all an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next episode.